Let me first compliment AIMA on its 10th National Leadership Conclave. And I'm delighted to learn that you've had very fascinating interaction through the day. And this is going to be your concluding session. And I got a call from Rekha that you wanted me to speak on the tariff issue. So let me try and put that in a perspective. And my view is that it's not just tariff, there's a reconfiguration and resetting of the world which is taking place. And it's taking place, there's a very seismic shift that is taking place, happening because of three reasons. One is that firstly, there's a return of big power conflict back center stage in the heart of Europe. And this we must understand that the First World War was fought in Europe, the Second World War was fought in Europe, and there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine for over 3.5 years. And the President of the United States of America, who had said that he'll be able to settle it in 24 hours, has not been able to settle it till now. So a very remarkable period of stability from the end of World War II till recent times has come to an end. Russia right now is sitting on almost 19% of Ukraine. It controls 75% of Kherson, Donetsk, and almost 99% of Luhansk. And one basic lesson which emerges from the Russia-Ukraine crisis is that countries should never become a proxy in a big power conflict. And what has happened is that Ukraine chose to be a proxy of US and Europe in its confrontation with Russia, and the consequences have been devastating for Ukraine. So it's a lesson for all countries that never have an independent foreign policy, never be a proxy to big power conflict. The second major challenge in the world is that there is a conflict in the heart of Middle East. This Middle East is really up in flames. There has been a prolonged instability. The region has been destabilized, and it has severe consequences, severe global complications, because India imports about 180 billion worth of fossil fuel, and its volatility has great impact on India. And therefore, India has a very big stake in a stable Middle East, largely because it is a major importer of oil and gas from Middle East. And the third big conflict is really about the prospects of war in Asia. And these have risen from China's threat, an open threat to annex Taiwan under its One China policy, even if it is required by use of force. So if China annexes Taiwan, the implications are very severe. Much of it is spelled out in a book by a person called Chris Miller. The book is entitled Chips War. Some of you should read it. He's a professor of Fletcher. That if China annexes Taiwan, that means they will control planes, they will control defense, they will control mobiles, they will control automobiles, because everything runs on chips. And Taiwan is the biggest manufacturer of chips. So this is the geopolitical configuration of what is happening. The second is that there is a crisis in economic globalization. And there's been a major trend against economic globalization, and there has been a breakdown of global supply chain. So if you look at the last 4 decades, vast segments of population have been lifted. They've gone beyond poverty lines, both in China and India, largely because of free trade. Now, Europe, America preached world trade. They preached free trade. They preached free trade, but when they were growing and expanding in its initial years, they were highly protectionist countries. They were all protectionists. But when they wanted to seize markets abroad, they started talking about free trade, and therefore Free trade was encouraged, boosted through the World Tourism Organization. China was included as a member, but China never practiced free trade. Many of the enterprises of China are fully supported by the states. So what has happened as a consequence is that manufacturing relocated to China, and United States was not able to build up social safety networks in the United States, and as a consequence of which there has been a backlash. By the time Trump came in, there were current account deficits, there was fiscal deficits, manufacturing had moved over across to the United States. And therefore, as a consequence of what he has done in April, calling it the Liberalization Day, is that he says that this is the end of multilateral World Trading Organization. Secondly, he has removed the distinction between developing, developed, and the least developed countries. There will be everyone, he says, will be treated equally by the United States, and that I will negotiate. Donald Trump will negotiate directly with each one of the countries. I will not negotiate through the World Trading Organization. That's the basic point that he's making. There is a severe, the reason for this, as I've said, is that there was current account deficit, there was fiscal deficit, the US trade deficit was about 1.2 trillion in 2024. So he says, I've got to set this right, but there is a severe global impact as there is lack of predictability and consistency, and there's a very, very complex tariff system which he will negotiate with 60 different countries. So the consequence of that has been that Trump's tariff policy has caused stock markets to tumble. It has sent shockwaves. It's led to a loss of about $6 trillion in the economy. And since then, he's announced a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs on all countries except China, which actually faces a very stiff tariff of about 125% in addition to the 10%, in addition to the 25% which is imposed earlier on aluminum and steel. And the reason for that is that in 2024, China had exported goods worth about $440 billion to the United States. $440 billion, its imports from the United States were just $144 billion. So there was a trade deficit of $296 billion with China. That is about 24% of the trade deficit of the United States. But we should look at the total trade deficit. If the total trade deficit is 1.2 trillion, 24% is the trade deficit on account of China, 20% is on account of European Union, and about close to 15% is on account of Mexico. 15% on account of Mexico, 24% is on account of Europe, and close to about 24% on account of China. This pause of 90 days pause on reciprocal tariff, and my view is that the baseline tariff of 10% will remain. That will be a source of earning, but on the rest of it, he will negotiate with each and every country. To understand the psyche of what he's trying to do, whether he will succeed, whether Trump will succeed in his attempt to reduce current account deficit, fiscal deficit, and will he be able to make America the great manufacturing power which he's talking about, and reduce US's chronic deficit, or the challenge is whether he'll succeed in doing it or whether he will leave behind a legacy of economic ruin, and whether America will fail in this attempt is really the question. And to understand much of this, there are two economists who have written a book called The Trump Economic Model, Trump Economic Miracle, and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. It's Arthur Latter and Stephen Moore. Some of you should try and read this book. Because what they say is that Trump feels that free trade is a myth, and actually free trade is detrimental to the United States. That's his basic belief, that free trade is detrimental to the United States of America. And that he feels that America needs manufacturing, not just for creating jobs, but for national security. It cannot be dependent on imports for pharmaceuticals, for steel, aluminum, and semiconductors. My view is that he will stick to 10%, rest of it he'll negotiate with each country, and after negotiating, he'll declare victory against each of the 60 countries with which he will negotiate. So that is where we are, and I'll come back to this, why I feel that this is really India's moment. This is not a crisis, this is a huge opportunity for India, and to my mind, India must do several things to fully tap into this opportunity, which we'll talk about. But the third key challenge is really the emergence of artificial intelligence as a technological force, and which has the potential to radically transform lives of citizens. It has the ability to enhance production, productivity, improve learning outcomes, health outcomes, nutritional standards. It can lead to huge transformation in developing countries. But at the same time, these technologies, the algorithms and the basic assumptions on which they are based have the potential to trigger conflict among societies, and therefore you would need some kind of international regulation on them. But the AI race has just begun, and I'm saying this because just about 2 months back, Mr. Trump had committed billions, the United States has committed billions to semiconductor investment with what he had called the Stargate Initiative. And he said that this will drive United States' technological future. It will create about 100,000 jobs. It will secure pole position for the United States in artificial intelligence. Within a month of that, in another part of the world, in China, we saw the emergence of an open source AI model, DeepSeek, which really shook the foundations of proprietary. The United States was building proprietary closed models. That is what the United States has done in technology, whether you look at in the last 4 decades, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Microsoft, whether it is Google. These are all proprietary closed models in which they have revenue models, but they control your data. And that is what the proprietary closed models were being built. But what DeepSeek demonstrated is that you can actually do this in an open source manner with low energy consumption, with very good software, but with limited computing power. The difference was that Stargate, if you look at OpenAI boasted of 4,500 employees. It had an investment of 6.6 billion in funding. In contrast, if you look at it, DeepSeek had not 6.6 billion, it had just 4 million. It had just 200 employees against 4,500, and it created a more efficient model than what OpenAI had done through open source model. So around that same, a couple of months before that, Sam Altman had visited India, and he said, he termed India's effort to develop its own artificial intelligence model into a question. He had responded that it is totally hopeless. India will never be able to do that. But about a fortnight back when he came, he made a complete about turn and said that India should take a leadership role in artificial intelligence space. So my view is that AI race has just begun. It's wide open. Those who disrupt first never win the race. It's the second mover advantage which is very critical, and India must take the second mover advantage because India is the only country which has about 500,000 engineers. No other country has these kind of engineers. The AI adoption rate in India is very, very high at 92%, and therefore we have a very, very big AI market in India. We can solve many of our domestic challenges, and our developer community is the second largest in the world, behind only the United States. And therefore, what India should really do is to innovate in a nimble, less energy consuming manner, more cost-effective manner, And we must demonstrate that India is capable of doing more for less, much like what ISRO has done. ISRO could land on a completely unique side of the moon at a less than what a movie like Galaxy, a Hollywood movie, had costed. So it could do at almost 50% of the cost of a Hollywood movie. So India is capable of doing more for less. Secondly, India's digital public infrastructure is all open source, and therefore open source is the way forward. We must do more brilliant and clever engineering. We must converge our software with computing powers to achieve solutions for many of our own challenges of improving learning outcomes and health challenges. And we must build our own sovereign models. We should not allow India to become a technology a colony of the United States or of China, because in AI, if you don't build your sovereign models, you'll forget your history, your culture, your civilization. All these inherent biases of US and of China will come in, and we lose our own entire civilization. And therefore, India must build its own sovereign end-to-end models based on our own languages. We have our 22 languages, official languages, but we have thousands of dialects which AI enables you to build upon. And therefore, it's very critical that we, with a sense of urgency and a missionary approach, we must use AI to build sovereign models for India, and we must do it in a very innovative manner. So 3 broad trends: geopolitics, conflicts in the heart of Europe, conflicts in Middle East, conflict likely in Asia with China's ambition of annexing Taiwan. There is a challenge of breakdown of global supply chain, Trump's tariff, 90%, and the challenge of artificial intelligence. And in the context of all this, what is it a crisis for India, as was termed by Sunita? Let me welcome Mr. Narendran, who's a very distinguished panelist here. So in the context of this, is it a crisis or is it an opportunity? And I think this is a huge opportunity for India. This is really India's moment, because this is a moment of disruption, and this can emerge as India's biggest opportunity. And India must seize this 90 days pause to see how best it can take maximum advantage of it. So first and foremost, I think this is an opportunity for India to make itself, to scrap a lot of rules, eliminate a lot of rules, regulation, procedures, acts, which have been coming in from the socialist era of India, and we must make India very easy and simple, and it's very important that India must become the easiest and the simplest country to do business in, much like Singapore is. So the challenge for India is to use this opportunity to become the simplest country in the world. And secondly, all regulations, many of our regulators, they view themselves as regulators. So all our regulators, whether it's Competition Commission, whether it's SEBI, whether it's RBI, whether it's IRDA, all of them they think themselves as regulators, whereas they should think themselves as developer, as people who are driving development of India, and therefore they must be modernized and should act as development bodies, and they should themselves review all their rules, regulation, and procedures. So to my mind, ease of doing business is very critical. The second is that India must, what has happened is that India has put up very high duties on inputs. Now, if you want to be a part of global supply chain, there are inputs coming in from various parts of the world. The minute you put duties on inputs, you are making the final product very expensive. So if you have to create 10 million jobs in textiles and you have to import yarn and polyester, and you're putting very high levels of duties on them, you're making the input very expensive for your manufacturers. And therefore, inputs cost have to be brought down to zero level, and that's very, very important to my mind. So inputs and components are both very important, and therefore, those are which go into manufacturing and exports have to be brought down to zero level. And the third point I want to make is that in the last 1.5 years, India has brought in a number of quality control orders by which we've blocked imports on several inputs, etc., which we need to review, and we need to, while Make in India is very important, where they are impacting exports and manufacturing, we need to rationalize them. The second point I want to make is that making India easy and simple is important for India's moment, but second important thing is that it's important to do a deal with the United States, which the Commerce Ministry is working on. But people who come to manufacture into India are not going to manufacture only for India. They're going to manufacture for the world. So India must become a center for manufacturing, for export to Europe, for export to East Asia and all other places. And therefore you need a trade deal with the United States, but you also need a trade deal with Europe, you need a trade deal with UK, you need a trade deal with many other parts of the world so that your manufacturers can then export to the rest of the world. And therefore trade pacts with other parts of the world are very important, whether it's zero for zero or low tariff for low tariff arrangements. You need. Why? Because I'm saying this point, making this point, because if United States is putting 145 to 125% duty on China, manufacturers are not going to manufacture in China. If they're going to put 41% duty on Vietnam, manufacturers are not going to make in Vietnam. They'll become uncompetitive as a nation. China has become a great manufacturing nation because it was backed by the United States in the last 4 decades. If they're going to put 145% duty, this means manufacturers looking for alternative destinations, and you need to work with them to ensure that they come to India to manufacture here, relocate to a friendly shore, and when they relocate here, open the market for them to the rest of the world. So working with companies who've invested in China, working with companies who've invested in Vietnam, working with companies who've invested in countries like Mexico, etc., is very important to relocate them here. The third point I want to make is that it's very important that we must integrate into the value chains of all strategic sectors where final manufacturing will be reshored to, the manufacturing will get relocated. India must become the trusted suppliers of components in auto, in defense, in electronics, in pharma industries. And for that to happen, there are huge import barriers on key raw materials such as synthetic fiber, fabrics, raw and tan hides, etc. All these. But India can be a big job creator in textile, big job creator in footwear. All of them we need to rationalize our duties to zero level of imports and lay down a real red carpet welcome for large industries working in China, in Indonesia, and in Vietnam. And therefore, we must hold their hands, give them approval within 15 days, and give them land and infrastructure for factory. This is my belief, and that should really help us to drive exports and manufacturing in a big way. There are many other, we should use this opportunity to structure many other things, including rationalizing the GST. There are too many rates. We should ensure that the domestic consumption taxes are excluded from the GST-based constituencies, which almost is 41% of the total domestic tax. I think it's very important to rationalize the rate of interest in India, simply because the statutory liquidity ratio demands that banks have to put almost 18% of their money into union and state bonds, and therefore the government of India is able to get that money, and therefore the interest rates at which private sector gets money is at a very high rate of interest. So these SLRs, GST, this is an opportunity to restructure many of these long pending critical issues, and these are structural reforms which are good for India. Use this opportunity to push them. And the other point I want to make is that it's not possible for India to grow without exports. No country in the world post-World War II, whether it was China, whether it was Japan, whether it was Korea, has ever grown without exports. Every time India has grown at 8 to 9 to 10%, it's grown on the back of exports. And therefore, if you look at our export story, if you look at, just look at one country, and that's China. China trade is, we import worth about 109 billion, we export only 15 billion. Even a small country like Ireland exports more to China than what India does. And Ireland is like Goa, to my mind. So, yeah, honestly, I'm telling you, so that shows that India has to export more. And India has to penetrate large markets like China. If you are not able to penetrate Europe, if you are not able to penetrate America, if you are not able to penetrate China and have a huge trade imbalance, you'll never be able to grow at 9 to 10%. And therefore, you need to do this in a very big way. And the other point I want to make is that this is an opportunity to really focus on deep tech and R&D. And I'm making this point because Indian private sector doesn't invest in R&D. India is not an innovative nation. Indian private sector spends just 0.6% of its GDP in India spends on R&D. The government of India has brought in a 1 lakh crore scheme for R&D, which needs to be pushed. And we need to become a nation for deep tech. We need to become a nation for clean tech. I'm making this point because today we are importing about 80% of our solar, 70% of our EV, 60% of our wind energy, and about 75% of our batteries, electric batteries, all from China. So we've made ourselves totally import dependent on China and clean tech, and it's very important that we push for a deep tech fund of funds quickly, which will then assist startups into pushing for a huge amount of R&D and innovation. My view also is that it's not just tariff. There are two other critical issues which are getting impacted. The first and foremost of which is H-1B visas. It's an opportunity to attract your best talent within India. You will face huge challenges on H-1B visa, and this is an opportunity to really push R&D. This is really an opportunity to attract top-tier scientific talent. My view is I want to go beyond this and to say that universities will face challenges in the United States. This is also an opportunity to attract their campuses into India. And third point I want to make is that while we have some programs like Vajra to attract Indian diaspora into teaching here, but we need to take a conscious approach in artificial intelligence, in quantum computing, in value-added biosimilars, and in some 3 or 4 cutting-edge areas where we should be able to attract distinguished academics from the top 100 global universities for a period of 5 years, give them the freedom to do R&D and research in India, and actually do the best AI and quantum computing work in India, because internationally all this work is being done by Indians. If you look at Intel, all the top AI work is being done by, even DeepSeek, all the cutting edge work is being done by Indians. So there's a huge opportunity of there. We should also get a number of research sabbaticals for academics from the top 200 global universities. We should provide a full budget so that these people come in and they work with our startups, because what has made United States a very innovative nation? It's the students studying in universities, working with the professors who are allowed to take equity in those startups, and there is a lot of risk funding available. Allow your PhD professors to take equity in startups. Allow them to make money out of this. Allow a lot of risk capital to flow. This is the opportunity to make India a hugely innovative nation. And therefore, my view is that we should actually, this is an opportunity to attract the best scientific talent from across the world into India. And therefore, I'm a great believer that India can become a great nation only if you focus on deep tech and clean tech. And this is an opportunity for India. So it's not just it's not just deep tech and it's not just clean tech, but there are also huge opportunities in, for instance, in textiles, in leather, footwear, where our import duties are high and we've not been able to do size and scale of manufacturing. So my personal view is that it's possible for India to create 10 million jobs in textiles if we get our policy regime right in that area. And we need to unlock the potential of man-made fibers and of technical textiles. So these, to my mind, are challenges. The world is getting reconfigured, completely reconfigured. It's a different world because of geopolitics. It's a different world because of It's a world which we are not used to for the last 5 decades. It's a world which, because of geopolitics, because of breakdown of global supply chains, because of tariffs, and because of artificial intelligence, opens up a lot of huge opportunities for India. This can be India's great moment. It's not a crisis, it's an opportunity, and India must tap into this with full vigor, energy, and dynamism. Thank you very much, ladies.